Party movement has become a strong force in conservative politics. Yet there are some individuals who associate with this movement who criticize the Civil Rights Act, who talk of becoming a third party, secession, or even taking up arms against the federal government. When it comes to these perhaps more extreme ideas, where do you draw the line with the Tea Party? Lieutenant Governor Bauer.
But any group has extremists. Wouldn't matter what group you talk about. And so I haven't actually met these folks at the Tea Party. I know the news loves to talk about them. I haven't met any of them. So we can always try to make people something out that not. The vast majority of people that are Tea Party, the vast majority of people in this room, there are people that are absolutely fed up with overreaching government, with rise in taxes, government telling us more and more what they're going to do, nationalized health care. That is what has brought this Tea Party movement. That is what has grown it. I, for a long time, think the Tea Party movement was a bunch of Republicans that at one time didn't even call themselves Republicans or Tea Partiers. They were just people that were fed up with government, and that's basically what the Republican Party is all about.
I have to tell you, I love the Tea Parties because I've spent the last 6 years trying to get people to know the power of their voice. And what we are seeing in the Tea Parties is they are not a party at all. This is Republicans, Democrats, and Independents who have said, we have had enough and we are taking our government back. And they are doing it through every ounce of free speech that they have. And what I appreciate is these are people who've never been involved in politics. They've never been involved in really getting out and voting, but they are now, and they are paying attention. And I had someone from Myrtle Beach ask me and say, do you really think this Tea Party movement means anything? And I said, are you kidding me? We are just getting started. So I think it is fabulous. I applaud the Tea Party movement. I applaud anyone that shows the power of their voice because this is the one and only true country where you can do that, and we are all incredibly blessed that we can.
God bless the Tea Party movement. I'll tell you, Audre's right. You know, in every group there may be extremists, whether they're on the far right or the far left. But the men and women that I've seen that are involved in the Tea Party, ladies and gentlemen, are husbands and wives, sons and daughters, men and women who are concerned and in many cases scared about the direction their country's going in. I can tell you firsthand, walking across the street, voting against socialized medicine. Now, you might call it nationalized health care, I call it socialized medicine. But walking across the street, I saw thousands of Americans using the one thing that they had, and that is their voice. And unfortunately, the one sign I saw time and time and time again was a very simple placard that had 3 little words on it. It said, "You're not listening." Ladies and gentlemen, thank you if you're in a Tea Party, because I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of people in America that are listening because of you.
I also say God bless the Tea Parties, the Tea Partiers, all of you for being here, coming to the meeting, because I'm going to tell you what I've seen. This is the first time in my lifetime, in going around this state or any place else, that people, this is adults and some younger people, are scared about the future of the country. Because they've seen what's happened. Now, the Obama administration is taking us off a financial cliff. There's no doubt about it. The debt is unsustainable. We can't pay it back. I don't know what we're going to do unless we get rid of it, but we better hurry. But when they pass that individual mandate, it is unconstitutional. When you have the President of the United States and the President of Mexico speaking in the Rose Garden, criticizing a sovereign state for trying to address a problem that the Congress is failing to address, we've got deep, deep problems. We have a right of association under the Constitution. We have a right of free speech. We have a right to keep and bear arms, and we got a right to freedom of religion. And we've got to exercise those rights or they get rusty. And people forget it. By the way, that's why you have criminal defense attorneys defending criminals. You say, how can they do that? It's because if you don't exercise those constitutional rights, they get rusty. And when they come after you, and you have done nothing, that's when you wish somebody had exercised those constitutional rights. So I say more power to them, more power to everyone who supports this Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bible. If you follow those three documents, you cannot go wrong.
There are painful times ahead. We hear reports that there may be as much as a $1 billion with a B shortfall in the state budget next year. If that should prove to be the case, were you governor under those circumstances, where and what would you cut to make the budget come in line?
We're going to have tough times. There's no doubt about it. And there's no magic pot of money anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, unless you live in Washington, D.C. And then that magic pot of money is your pocketbook. But we can't do that here. So we've got to be very careful. We're going to have to tighten our belt. We're going to have to be accountable. All sorts of economic engines in our state. That people's not going. Does that mean I get to keep on?
There are 4 things the government has to do. Number 1, keep its citizens safe and secure. Number 2, infrastructure or economic development. Number 3, education. And number 4, Medicaid.
Years from now. The very first thing I will do in my administration is we will audit every single one of our cabinet agencies. We will start at zero and we will say, what do we have to have, and work our way up. The second thing we need to understand, it's not what we spend, it's how we spend. Look at the Department of Education alone. We spend almost $12,000 a year to educate a child in this state. It goes through 1,000 people at the Department of Education in 85 school districts before it ever touches a teacher and student in the classroom. Yet we're only graduating 1 out of every 2 kids in 4 years. 1 out of every 2. That's why we say it's not that you have to fund education. We need to shine the light on where's the money in education going. If it's not going to the teachers, the students, and technology in the classroom, it's not going to the right place.
Since nobody else answered the question, I'd shut the parks down. I'd lease out the visitor centers. I'd lease out the rest areas. I would find places to cut. You can't pay for everything. Nobody wants to tell you because they don't want to offend you. That's where we've gotten. Politicians will not tell you an answer on this question because you will alienate some part of the population. We're going to have to let nonviolent offenders out of prison. Keep the murderers in, but the folks that have been there as a nonviolent offender, put an ankle bracelet on them. We're going to have to do some difficult things that may not sound great, but make sure that we can fund essentials because we want to keep murderers in prison and we want to make sure we don't furlough teachers. But we shouldn't be building football stadiums anymore. We should take those off the table. Schools should share football stadiums until we're in better times. Again, it's going to be about priorities.
Can you name a specific time in your political career when you've taken a stance that was out of line with your party's base because you thought it was the right thing to do?
I don't hear them backing me up now on cutting these social programs.
You can see lots of bruises on my arms from the 2.5-year battle over getting legislators to vote on the record. It's important enough to be debated on the floor of the House or the Senate. It's important enough for every single person to know how their legislators voted. And I can tell you, when I went to my party leadership, I said, we should do this. And they said, put the bill away. We don't need to have it. We will decide what the public needs to see and what they don't. And so the battle that I took on for 2.5 years, and we are almost there, is to make sure that you can see every single vote on the record. And now we're dealing with a Senate that's trying to say it's unconstitutional for you to see how they vote. And if it's ever been a time where I've said that I have found flaws in the Republican Party, it is because we've got a lot of Republicans who have learned the talking points and haven't learned the conservative actions associated with the talking points. It has got to stop. This is about transparency, this is about accountability, and this is about reminding elected officials who it is they work for.
In my freshman year, we took on an issue called prescription drugs, Schedule D Medicare. I was part of the longest vote in United States Congress history. Almost a 10-hour vote. And I remember standing on the back rail where the President of the United States called me, President Bush, my president, Dick Cheney, Newt Gingrich, you name it, all the all-stars. And I remember being one of 16 Republicans that said no to the largest entitlement at that time in America's history.
2 times I went against the people in my party. Specifically, one was on the bobtailing bill that had all of the life science things and a lot of different things put on it. A lawsuit was brought. The Republicans expected me to support them, to defend the government. I said, my job is to defend the Constitution, not the government. That's what I did, and we won that case.